So this is the third episode. Welcome everybody to the Media and Content Business Podcast. And on this episode, I have with me Vignesh from Etherview, but you want to call it Eitherview, right? It's mainly a platform where you're trying to present a topic and kind of bring out two opposing views to that same particular topic, right? But you know what? Welcome Vignesh, first of all.
Yeah.
And rather, a quick 2-3 minutes, not 2-3 minutes, 2-3 lines on what exactly you're doing at Eitherview.
Okay. So thank you so much, Jugal, for inviting me for this episode.
Right.
So Eitherview is a platform where we provide both perspectives, right? Both from the left wing and the right wing for any news story. Now, of course, there are many news articles which don't have a left-right, duality, but it still has a for and an against, right? But most of the times, if you look at newspapers or online news websites, what you find is a biased take where you get a projection of one side very clearly, but the other side is somewhat lost in the entire, let's say, article or video.
I have a feeling we might get into a political discussion around this. That's going to come, right? But I'll leave that for later, right? So I just wanted the audience to first understand what you're doing. So you pick up a topic, and I'm assuming this is not political, and or is it business, political? What is it?
We cover current affairs basically. So it could include, politics.
It's across wide across the spectrum, right? You're a media company.
Yeah. So whatever is timely, whatever is happening in these over the past few days, those things we cover. And that's how it's been so far. Yeah.
Awesome. So, just wanted the audience to get to know about what exactly Eitherview is. Before moving forward, I'm going to come back to this, what you're doing and why you're doing this. Just a general introduction about yourself. What's your past been? I know you've told me it's actually very interesting because you're from NFT, a design background, and then you moved into business, IIMs and so forth.
Yeah. So I did fashion technology from NIFT Chennai. It's different from design. That's the mistake people make. So there's a course called fashion technology. It's a Bachelor of Fashion Technology. So what we do is we actually manufacture the garments, right? We are responsible for manufacturing the garments. So there is a designer who will design the piece and give it to us, a sample piece. And then we make the garment for mass market, right? So setting up the factories, setting up the lines and so on.
They're exporters all spread across India, right?
Exactly. So that's the course that I did in NIFT. And
so your course was around the technological aspect of production, I would say.
Production.
Awesome.
Production and merchandising. That's what you call. So I did that, from 2006 to 2010, for 4 years. And for a couple of years, I worked in a domestic kidswear brand in Gurgaon. It was called Naughty Nutty. I think I have had the best time there for the first 2 years. And, luckily I got through IIM Ahmedabad, at the end of the second year of my job.
That's awesome. Which year was this that you joined?
2012.
2012.
Yeah. So 2012 to 2014, I was in the PGP course in IIM Ahmedabad. So while studying there, me and a couple of my colleagues, we decided to start an educational venture of our own. So we didn't sit for placements. So we opted out of placements and we started this venture in Delhi. It was more about, giving clarity to school students about what career they want to pursue, right? So we had a leadership cum internship program for school students of classes 9 to 12 at that point. So what we did was we took the students to a 3-day leadership camp, where we basically did some exercises and some fun events.
So you had a company on these exercises?
Yes.
So you onboarded some companies?
No. So we had tie-ups with companies for internships. So this leadership camp was basically an outdoor event where, we...
But conducted by you itself?
Yeah, we ourselves conducted it. It was a 3-day event and, just to get to know the children and, what their strengths and weaknesses and do some psychometric tests and all that. So eventually after that, what we did was we called the parents of the students along with the students and we actually spoke to them about the likes and dislikes of the children and what they wanted to pursue. Many children, they were like, I want to pursue this, but my parents are not allowing and all that. Right? So we had a very open one-to-one conversation with the parents. And then after that, we convinced them and, we convinced them to let the children be.
There are a lot of companies in this space who are still working out something like this. I know a friend of mine, he runs something called Unheard. Where he gets, but rather than just getting companies, he also gets individual visual influencers.
Right.
So, for example, he'll get someone who's very famous on Instagram who doodles.
Right.
So that girl will come and she'll host. He will help her in the course creation. He will help her in the marketing. And now he's become a good enough brand where students automatically get, what do you call, attracted to whatever courses that he's offering. And that's usually to like 8th standard to 12th standard students.
Right.
So this girl comes, she'll take a weekend course, spread over 2-3 weekends or 4 weekends.
Right.
And, she'll make them go through the entire process. And at the end, the idea is that it will help the student understand whether they're cut out for it or not, what exactly the career choices are and so forth. But tell me something, I'm assuming you shut this down. Probably you didn't get the funding at that point.
Yeah, so I said there was an internship component, right? So it was more of an experiential learning. So we took students to all these big companies.
Right.
So if you wanted to become a lawyer, we took you to a law firm.
Right.
And the law firm took the children to Delhi High Court where the lawyers were practicing, right? So that's sort of an experience we wanted to show. Yeah. And eventually, someone wanted to become a chef. We took them to one of the premier hotels where the chefs were working. They got to know it was not the industry that they wanted to be in eventually, and they chose some other subjects. So that's the kind of impact that we were looking at, but unfortunately it's not scalable. Right?
Yeah, education, we all know. Recently we've been seeing it.
Yeah, so there are two aspects to it. One is the logistics of it. Scaling the internship part was a tough ask. The other is, getting into the schools, the school ecosystem, right?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. I've actually tried that myself.
Yeah.
So, I tried, I ran a product, and tried to sell it to schools. The sales cycle is very long. And secondly, there's not just one person who is handling the affairs. There's that entire trust. Right. So one will pass it, the other won't, and there's so many hurdles to it. It's not even funny. Right. But just jumping across from your experience, how did things turn to a point where you were motivated to start either of you?
Exactly at that point, right? So when we were about to shut down our educational venture, that was the point when I had this idea for either of you, right?
And this is how many years?
So it was in 2015.
Okay.
Right. And so 2015, I think the Ken started their services at that time. But even before that, so I had this idea for a news website. It was not a newsletter per se at that point, because newsletter as a business model, it wasn't there. Nobody knew about it at that point. So we thought of it as a news website where we talk about news, but we'll give both the perspectives. Right? But we did pitch to a few people, and did some presentations and all that. But eventually we realized probably too early, and nobody would invest money, and we couldn't continue without some sort of funding, right? And we were fresh out of college. We started our venture, it failed. Now if we were to start another venture, we would want some funds, right? So at that point we were like, okay, let's take it slow. Let's keep this idea in the back burner. And so eventually we all moved on to our professional lives, you could say. So I started working in a couple of I first started working in GoJava's. It was a logistics company, right?
Yeah. So that was the first article that Ken covered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I got exposed to the Ken, right?
Right.
It made
it was more on the negative side of whatever was happening with GoJava's. Right.
So it made a lot of noise, right?
Exactly.
Even within the organization, everybody was discussing that particular article.
Right.
So I know the Ken from those days.
Right.
And I've been following them for a while. And that sort of, once Ken grew, and I think around 2019-20, when even at that point they had around 15,000 paid subscribers or so, after 4-5 years of work. It was tough, right? They were creating sort of paid newsletter market in India, right? And they were probably doing investigative journalism, well researched and well done.
They also have very experienced journalists coming in, right? They were earlier with the Mint or with different reputed organizations and proper business reporting. They're not coming from some other industry and trying to create
and that of course helps, right? In any industry, if you're familiar with that industry, it's always, I wouldn't say very easy, but at least it gives you a head start, right? So I've been following them for a while. But so after GoJava's, I switched a couple of other companies. Mostly my work has been in startups. And since I had a fashion background, I joined a couple of fashion startups as well.
So when did you start this exactly, like full time?
So pandemic happened. Right. So 2020, I started doing this. Started writing on the side.
All right.
Started the newsletter, sent it to a few of my friends and family and all that.
Okay.
Got some good feedback from them, and everybody was like, why is it not available anywhere, right?
Okay.
This is so good. I would rather read this than search for the other perspective. One thing that I realized was people don't search for the other perspective, right?
Right.
What happens is if you read a particular news article,
right,
or if you read a particular news brand,
right,
like the Hindu or the Express, you stick to that brand.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
If the Hindu carries a particular article,
right,
you read that article. That's the amount of information you have.
Right.
You don't read if the Hindu has a one-sided perspective. You don't read the other side.
And
you don't go in search of that other side.
Exactly, that's very true. Nobody searches for it until and unless it comes up in the search results.
Correct.
And I don't know if people are going to go through 3 or 4 different articles, right? And more importantly, given, there's so many, the spread of, misinformation that's happening, right?
Yeah.
I think it gives more importance to the fact that people get a complete view.
True.
Of course, again, it turns very political as to, who's pushing out what,
right,
and how only some aspects of information are going out. But I really don't want to get there into the political aspects of it. So you're saying that you realize that nobody's searching for it, and usually just one-sided information is being consumed, be it far left, far right, whatever. It's just one, right?
Correct.
Great. And in any case, just before you speak again, I have I've always believed that Google kind of provides you half information, right? So assuming something, I'll give you let's take up any simple example of, let's say the LTT and Sri Lanka, right? Their name usually pops up in, right now, if, I don't know, if anybody speaks about that organization, or I don't know, I think some of the people who are responsible for the assassination were in jail. I don't know if they've been freed or not, but whenever, one of the Gandhis used to visit them, people would just, that there were just 2 lines, LTT, assassination, and so forth. But nobody has any idea of what really happened behind the scenes. It's just half information. You just know that this thing happened. It's not even half. It's literally next to nothing. Right? Are you trying to solve for that as well?
So I won't say I'm trying to solve a bigger,
no, but I mean, does that, do you think that's something you want to solve?
So what I want to do is, I want to enable people to talk to each other and not talk over each other. Right.
Okay.
That's the only objective that I have.
Right.
And now I'm not saying I am providing you all the information, right?
Okay.
I am providing you the information that I have, that I can research, that I put it out there. But that is a good start for you to explore further, right?
Awesome.
So if I talk about one particular topic, an article worth 1,000 words will not do justice to any of the topics, right?
Exactly.
So you need to at least know what the sites are,
right?
So that you can, if that interests you, you go further and research, do a lot more.
I think it's going to be a great solution for dating platforms with what you're saying. I actually saw an ad, somebody had a tape on their mouth. So it said that it was either Jeevan Sathi or one of these Hinge or Tinder, and 2 people met through that platform, but the ad showed that, they had tapes on their mouth. They couldn't talk. I don't know, probably.
I actually had an idea like Tinder, where I wanted to invite a few select set of people, of different, with different ideological viewpoints, and like what we are doing right now, sit, in front of each other with differing viewpoints, and talk it out, right?
Okay.
Just talk it out.
Okay. But moving forward, I completely get where you're going with this. Somehow because I saw that ad yesterday itself, I just kind of. So your idea is that 2 people can come and talk and discuss properly over a matter. So you said that you kickstarted it by writing articles, and you started sharing it probably over a blog with your friends and family. How did it go from there?
So I always wanted to start this, as I said, right? So since 2015, I've been having this idea, and I've worked in startups, and I've always wanted to do something of my own, right? And this writing came naturally to me, right? And I used to read a lot. Now, not so much, but I read a lot. I used to write also, but I didn't think it was a career option, when.
So you were still working when you
kickstarted
this, right?
Right. And so now once I started this, I saw there is a need for this, right?
Right.
And people were like, very intrigued and very interested. One, of course, the name itself was catchy,
Right.
They were like, what the hell is this?
Right.
And they wanted to know what it is. The other is, as I said, people do not search for it.
Right.
And the fact that even if I put out the information
Right.
of both the sides,
Right.
it is a little difficult for people to read the other side, even if it is right there in front of you.
Makes
right?
sense.
And that sort of feedback also came to me, and I was like, someone should do this,
Right.
Someone should start doing it. Why not me?
Right.
And I wouldn't have started if I didn't raise some funds, right?
Right.
It was, I know in media business, it's very difficult to sustain.
Yeah.
At least to make a break, you need to at least be here for 3-4 years, to
Makes
start making enough revenue to sustain yourself, right?
Makes sense.
So I wanted some funds on board. So once I did this experiment, I spoke to a few people, close friends and family.
Okay.
A couple of them were willing to, put in some money.
So you raised
I raised a friends and family
round.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's how I started the company.
And
so
then
once
you
I had
quit
commitments,
full-time.
I started the commitment. I'm doing this.
So when did this happen? Which year?
2021.
2021 is when you kickstarted properly.
Properly.
Right.
Yes,
Where you
yes.
raised.
So where I started a company, a private limited company, and started hiring
friends
people.
and a family round.
Yeah. Right. So far, I used to write the articles myself.
Right.
But I realized it's not
exactly
the way to go. So I started hiring initially with a couple of interns. Now I have 2 full-time writers.
So you are in total.
So we are 3 people now.
Okay.
And 2 writers. One who's based out of Chennai. His name is Varun Sukumar.
Right.
And another. So I until recently had a writer called Shloka Chatterjee.
Right.
She was also really good. Both Varun and Shloka were really good.
Right.
And recently, last month, I hired another person called Mehak Luthra.
Okay.
And so she's in Bangalore. So we have like good,
Okay. So how do you disseminate this information right now?
Through newsletters, through email service providers, like we use MailChimp.
So you're basically just a newsletter,
yes,
right?
Yes,
and I saw that you have some presence on Instagram, some very minor. You've not really pushed it enough.
So I did try doing Instagram, but I thought the content, it doesn't attract. Over the past few months of sending the newsletters out and talking to people, it doesn't reach out to the younger generation much. Right. The way we write the content, it's slightly on the serious side. It's for people who want to understand what's happening.
This is a very interesting point that you're bringing up, because just in the last episode I spoke to Rohit, and he runs a channel called Barely Opinionated, which also is building a community around knowledgeable content, right? And that's what even he mentioned, that different platforms, the consumption patterns are different.
Right.
And Instagram, he says that somehow he made it big on Instagram, and that's his first platform which he cracked.
Right.
But he's starting to realize that more and more people who are really serious about his content, and because it's content around knowledge and a lot of UPSC aspirants, RSTG, he's shifting to platforms like newsletters and LinkedIn, wherein longer information can be consumed. But he doesn't want to give up on Instagram, because he says that's the first channel that I've built.
Right.
That's where my majority of the discovery happens.
Right.
And he's kind of cracked. So fine, you wanted to start out with newsletters because of the fact that you could easily disseminate information, right? So tell me something. I want to straight away jump into your content strategy. You said 3 people, you started it out. What is it? What do you do? Do you simply pick up 10 newspapers, you've identified it, you read through it? Or how deep is the research?
So the fact is, the article is written in a day, right? The entire article is written in one day. And, as far as research is concerned, how many ever articles that we can come across online.
Right.
No, we don't go and talk to people or.
So it's more secondary research.
Mostly secondary.
It's curation.
Yes, curation.
Okay.
I won't say curation per se, because we do
Eventually, you publish a new thing. Yeah.
So we do curate enough links around a particular topic.
Right.
So what we do is, I'll tell you how we work on a daily basis. Every day in the morning, we all 3 of us, we sit and discuss at least let's say 8 to 10 topics.
Okay.
Right. Usually topics which are timely, which happened like the previous day or the day before, or on days when we don't have some news which can have both the sides. Of course, not all news will have both sides.
Right.
So on those days, we come up with some other unique content, like is like today we wrote, is fintech good for the economy or not, something.
Okay, they're too used to it.
Yeah,
right?
so that's a more generic topic, right? But there are timely topics as well related to politics or current affairs or whatever.
Right.
So we discuss, we debate. Each of them pitches a few topics. We debate and we finally choose on one particular topic.
Right.
And then one person takes up the job of writing the entire feature story.
How long is this feature story?
It's around 1,000 words, I would say. Yeah.
1,000 words.
Yeah.
Right. And you do this daily?
We do this daily. Mondays to Fridays, we have this feature story, and we also have a few other sections in the newsletter. One is called Beyond Echo Chambers,
right,
where we just give you a link to an article published elsewhere.
So the snippets kind of a thing?
Not even snippets.
It's just the link?
Just the title with the link.
All right.
What we say is, this is for the right, and this is for the left.
Okay.
The fact is, it is called Beyond Echo Chambers because we want you, if you are a right-wing person, to read content which was written from the left-wing perspective.
Okay.
Right? And same, vice versa, right?
Wow.
So we give you one link every day for both the sites. And we ask you to go click that link. It leads to other news publications. But we find those articles interesting and intriguing, from the other perspective. So we thought we should let the people read.
That's amazing. Tell me something. How many subscribers do you have right now?
So we have over 2,100 subscribers for iTheView.
Okay.
And most of them, are, as I said, not young, not in the 18 to 25, 18.
So what's your TG like?
Over 25, 25 to 40 is where we see a lot of traction.
Right.
And the fact is, apart from the Beyond Echo Chamber section, we don't encourage people to, go outside of our newsletter, right? So our click-through rates are, it's 1%, around 1% for the newsletter.
Right.
But we have polls, for each feature story that we do.
Right.
We ask the, people what they think,
right?
Which side are they on,
right?
Just to keep
engage them, yeah.
And all that. So that sort of bumps up the click rate to 3%, right?
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So people have to actually read that to come back and take participation in that poll.
Yeah. So only subscribers can do. If you get an email, you can click on it. Otherwise, if you are on the website, you're just randomly looking at the website, you cannot participate.
Exactly. Tell me something. What are the open rates on these 2,100 subscribers?
So we have close to 30%. I think 29 to 30% is what we are seeing, and that's been consistent. So we've not done anything special to bring it up to 30%. So far,
that's always been.
It's always been like that.
Okay,
and that shows the kind of audience that we are having, right? So even though it's a smaller audience,
it's engaged.
It is engaged, and it's very they want to know what's happening. Right?
Okay,
that's the kind of space we want to be in at this point, right?
Great.
And build even if it's a small community, build a community of very good, faithful followers who want to know what we are doing. Right?
Makes sense. Yeah. I'm going to come back to this point later as to how strong this community is. But just coming back to this point, you said 2,100 subscribers, 30% open rate, and a 1-3% click rate.
Right.
The CTR that goes through, right? When you put out the polls and the other links, right? How did you get? So you mentioned earlier that you said you started out by sharing it with your friends and family.
Right.
I'm assuming you got about 100 subscribers from there, 100, 200.
Yeah.
That's the first initial one. From there to 2,000, how did you do it? And what's the time frame, by the way? So which month in 2021?
Yeah, so we started in I think July, I believe.
So you are exactly 1 year.
Almost a year. And so if you look at it from that perspective, it's been very slow.
Right. No, it's about slow. Just wanted to understand how from that 100, 200 to 2,000.
Yeah, so again, we've not had like a consistent growth. So we've had like patches of growth.
All right.
So of course, I reached out to my IMA community.
Okay.
We have a lot of people from IIM Ahmedabad who are reading our content,
right?
And that's it's always good to have such a community, right?
Right.
And apart from that, I did try a few things.
Okay.
Few things worked, few things didn't work.
Can you tell something which worked and which didn't work?
Yeah.
Just want the audience to know.
So a person on Twitter who had a good enough
influencer marketing.
Yeah, it's not necessarily marketing. That guy. So I didn't ask him to post. And I didn't know that person, and he himself posted, right, and he had a good number of followers,
right,
and that sort of bumped up.
How much did you get? If you
I think around 200 odd for one post of his, right?
That's awesome.
So he did like 2.
Do you have any clue how many subscribers or followers that guy have on Twitter?
Yeah, he has close to 20K, I think.
Okay, so from 20K you had about 200.
I think it's good enough, without doing any sort of marketing.
Right.
It's basically word of mouth, right?
Right.
That
It's
guy,
1% basically conversion happening.
Yeah. So that guy likes our content. He posted it, and we got that, right?
So did you push through and try to collaborate?
So I did try. Again, Twitter influences are slightly different, compared to Instagram, right? So Instagram, you could just pay it off and ask them to post something.
Exactly.
Twitter, you need to be a little more subtle, and unless they like your content, and we don't want people on Twitter who have followers but who don't have the kind of followers that we need.
Exactly.
Right? So we don't want any random follower who just does it for the sake of following this person, right? And doesn't engage with us, right? So we need to target those kind of people who are talking about news, who are interested in news, who are interested in both the sides.
Right.
So I did reach out to a few people, but it's been tough to
I can imagine, because you have a lot of hardcore professionals there, and for them sharing something really means that they care about it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So within your community of like 2,000 people, did you try out something? I mean, the referral part of it, because
no. So we did have plans for referrals, but so I'll tell you, there were a few things that I could have done, but I didn't, because I felt it was probably not the right way to go. A couple of things that I did and later felt I shouldn't have done.
Okay.
So I sponsored a couple of events, right?
And these events were in college?
So yeah, college events.
Okay.
So one was in my institute, IIM Ahmedabad.
Okay.
So they had a huge event about marketing, I think, and they had a separate section called debate, right? So the people from all across the country would come and participate in events and workshops and speaker sessions and all that. There was a separate event called debate event. So I sponsored that. So that sort of gave me a good reach, I would say.
Okay.
Not necessarily in terms of subscribers, but at least I got to put my name out there.
Right.
Either view's name out there.
Right.
And I did try this with another Delhi-based university, DU college.
Right.
And that sort of, so how it worked was, so when I pitched to them, I said, I'm doing this, but I would also need a few, subscribers, right? Either from your college or, it could be a win-win for both of us, because I'm, paying for the sponsorship and all that.
Right.
So IMA, it sort of worked, sort of didn't, but I didn't have any major issues there.
Right.
But in this college, what happened was people subscribed.
Right.
And the next day, everybody unsubscribed.
Okay. So it was kind of a forced thing that you did.
Yeah, and I didn't want that, right? So I was very clear in my communication that nobody should be forced to subscribe. We need to be out there. We hope that people will subscribe.
Right.
So what happened was, in their eagerness to show some numbers that, because you've given some money, so we are showing you this, they got a bunch of people, 100 odd people only, but
right.
But that affected our, deliveries, right? So we got a warning on our ESP saying, a bunch of them are unsubscribing.
Right.
And that's like, you're dependent on the ESPs.
Right.
And that sort of hit me. That's the first time I, got to know the ins and outs of how ESPs work and what kind of, checks and balances they have.
Right.
And that sort of, put a break on the kind of things that I wanted to do.
Right.
Because I didn't want to have people subscribing and then unsubscribing.
Right. So in a way, it kind of sponsoring events did work out, but more on, you weren't really happy with it. There were too many
really happy with that.
Risks associated with it, right? Anything else apart from?
I did do like Facebook marketing, Facebook, Instagram marketing, but I did get a lot of likes for the post itself,
right?
The ad itself,
right?
But none of them converted into subscribers.
So mostly it has been a lot of organic growth.
Yes, mostly.
So how are the people joining in? Who are these people who are coming in?
So one is word of mouth, as I said, right? So now people are starting to talk about it, on LinkedIn and Twitter and all. The other is, we are trying to reach out to institutes and like journalism colleges and all that.
Right.
Just to, one, for hiring purposes, of course,
right,
but also to let them know that there's a brand like this, and people should probably look at it and
subscribe to it and so forth.
Yeah, because I feel
But don't, tell me something. Don't you feel news? As a layperson like me, right? Of course, I get the idea that it's about opposing viewpoints that are happening, but I will usually consider news from a trusted source.
Right.
So do you think that's really affecting your growth at the moment? Because that trust factor, see, you're speaking about politics.
Right.
Politics is the realm of very few people, That's the reason why it's very difficult to break into a space like this.
And very few people are running newsletters on politics specifically.
Exactly.
Yeah, so so there are two sides to it again, right? So if you are well known in the industry,
right?
Let's say you follow, let's say, the print or whatever, the Hindu or whatever.
Right.
You already have made up your mind regarding their ideologies.
Right.
From whatever sources you've heard or read or whatever, you think, oh, the Hindu might be left or right wing or whatever. You might feel it is left wing and someone else might feel right wing. So you already have a perspective there.
Right.
And when you read the content, you read it from that mindset, right?
Right.
But someone like us, when we come in the market, so nobody knows us because we've not been in the industry, journalism. I'm not.
Exactly. I'm going to read a newsletter from you when you say that, I'm talking about technology in production for merchandise, garments. You come with a NIF background, right? You don't come with the politics.
Right. So exactly. So
anything that you guys have done to counter this, by the way, because see, building brand, I know I can follow the Hindu. I will go and read from the print, whatever is written out there. I'm going to be more accepting of their views, be it left, be it right, or be it, no, just facts. Forgetting opinion. But have you done anything to kind of bridge this gap or to build the trust in the minds of the audience?
So we are building the trust by asking people who are not journalists to spread the word, right? So lay people, right? Lay persons like you and me,
right?
They are spreading the word. So it's not like a particular journalist from a particular organization who's spreading the word.
Right.
And I did, in terms of reach, I did do a couple of ads on a few newsletters as well.
Okay. How did that work?
That sort of, one newsletter, it sort of worked out. And
which one was it?
The Signal.
Okay. So you put it out there and it worked out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I'll probably continue with them, going forward as well.
All right.
They were a very good source for me in terms of increasing the subscribers. But then again, some other newsletters which had a younger audience, it didn't work out.
Okay. So naturally your newsletter, your content is more geared towards an audience which is more, let's say, willing to consume a lot of information, and that too in the long form, right?
Correct.
Because the attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. I'll jump directly to this part, to the revenue aspect of it. You're currently pre-revenue. You haven't done anything yet, right? But I just want to understand this audience that you're building. How do you see it in the future? Contributing revenues. So I'll tell you what. Have you identified who exactly your TG is, and how do you serve them? Right. It's going to be very difficult because I see that you've not narrowed down your niche. If you look at newsletters across, right, subscribers are limited. They'll be anywhere from the range of 2,000 to 15,000 to 30,000. A majority of them. Of course, some will go into millions, but these smaller ones, they attract very high CPMs because of the niche audiences that they've been able to build. How do you feel about your audience and your revenue?
Yeah, so one particular audience that we have in mind is the aspirants for UPSC.
Right, definitely.
I think this is like I would say a godsend for people like that. Exactly. You don't need to scour through multiple news articles to figure out what's happening in a particular event, right? So I think this is a very good supplementary reading material for them.
Right. Do you think they're going to pay for it?
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? So in terms of numbers, if you look at it, the UPSC aspirants, over 10 lakh, 1 million people apply for UPSC.
Oh, numbers are huge.
Right? Numbers are huge.
Right.
And they are paying, lots of money to get into coaching centers.
You know what? I've given exams myself, UPSC exams. I've given it 2 times. And this was 2009.
Okay,
way long back.
Yeah.
And I have seen this with my own eyes, right? There was this guy, and it's in Delhi, Rajendra Nagar. They're very famous for coaching and all that. And of course, I won't take the name, but they're a very famous coaching institute out there. And there was this young guy who had a small cloth, and it was kind of tied up, and you could realize that there's cash inside, right? He literally just kept it on the table. Whoever that official from that coaching center was sitting there, and he said it in Hindi. He said, I've sold my land.
Right.
This is what I have. I know this is still falling short of your fees. And the fees, you can say it's a lot, it's a less, but I'm not blaming the coaching institute. They were not charging exorbitant fees or anything like that, right? But you've got to realize the situation. Somebody just,
Right.
keeping it right there and saying, you know what, this is all I have. I know this is short of your fees, but I still want to,
right.
please take me in. I want to crack the exams.
Right.
Right. So, of course, you're looking at a market which is...
Right. So there are, the students themselves, they come from varied backgrounds, right? So
Exactly.
you can't expect someone like that, the example that you gave, I can't expect him to pay a bunch of money to just read newsletters, right?
Right.
So the idea is to reach out to these institutes,
Okay.
right? And try to do some sort of a tie-up and see where it goes. Again, in terms, when I started ITherView, I only had ITherView in mind, right?
Okay.
I only had this newsletter.
It seems like you started more from passion.
Yes.
And more from an innate
Correct.
desire to spread rather than thinking about...
Yeah, so
where
I did
money's
think
gonna
about
come
the, in terms of scaling, in terms of numbers. I was encouraged by the success of the Ken and FinShots.
Oh, FinShots is a great example. I'm not going to consider the Ken because Ken is proper journalism.
Yeah,
There are a bunch of
journalism, but
journalists.
FinShots was like, it sort of blew up, right?
Exactly.
And I thought, that's again, it's not like a short form content. I thought maybe, they are doing it for fintech, right? Financial news and all that. I thought, nobody's doing for, politics or current affairs.
Right. But I'll tell you one major difference, right? When I don't really follow this one, the fintech one that you mentioned. FinShots, yeah. Of course, everybody knows about them.
Right.
But the idea I, as a user, was, I'm going to follow them is because it will help me make money.
Right.
Right. Yours probably falls more in the line
Exactly.
where it can help me pass exams.
Yeah. So exactly. So that's the realization we've come to now.
Okay.
Right? So far, I thought of ITherView as a mass market product. Right?
Okay.
Like to reach as many citizens of our country as possible.
Okay.
If required, we can also have an ITherView International Edition or whatever. Right. So
Right.
we can do that. But I've realized that may not be the way to go. Right. Over the past few months.
Yeah.
Because this involves a lot of research on our end as well, right? So it's not like you just curate and just
exactly.
do a
You're
summary.
researching, you're writing, and
we are
something like
researching and we are putting it in a certain format, which enables you to understand the context, both the viewpoints and all that.
So you realize that not you know what exactly this is the mistake which many people have made when they touch upon politics. They think that the entire world is their market,
right?
But reality is, and politics or current affairs, right? Reality, what I've heard from many people is that mass market is usually, at least in India, is Bollywood, is politics,
right?
But not with a nuanced view. It is more of what happened where, right? It's then it's cricket.
Right.
That becomes very massy, and I'm going to repeat this point again here today. I did that in my last episode as well.
Okay.
I spoke to someone from Indian Express a long time back, and again, idea was I was discussing about knowledgeable content on these platforms, and he clearly mentioned, in India people want to know which color jeans Shah Rukh Khan is wearing, which color, when did a Malaika Arora go out, whom is Sara Ali Khan dating, and so forth, right? Nobody cares about opposing views, right? So coming back to the same point that you're mentioning. You've realized that your audience is very niche. So going forward, what do you...
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? So now that I've realized it's a niche audience,
right?
So I could either have like a, B2C component separate, and do a B2B component where we reach out to these coaching institutes, and tell them we will provide you the information, right?
So you're very clear that your audience now consists of mostly UPSC students.
I think it'll affect them immensely compared to a lay person who will only want to know
so
it may not like you said, right, reading FinShots may help you make money.
Exactly. There has to be an end goal for the user,
right? So for UPSC there is a clear end goal,
right?
But for others, for lay persons, it's just their interest, right? So they want to know the different perspectives,
right?
So that's the reason we might shift our target audience and the entire play around revenue model and all that slightly from the mass market to a niche.
That's going to happen. That's actually great to hear. Tell me something. Did you by any chance try out any revenue models so far? Have you reached out to any brand?
No.
Any brand?
So we've not done it. Again, it'll be unfair to ask a brand to let's say do a tie-up with us.
Exactly.
We can do barters. I'm in talks with a few people to do barters where we don't pay, but we do a shout out of each other in our newsletters or outside the newsletter, wherever. But just to get money, I don't think I am giving value for them at this point in time. Right? Because if you are an advertiser,
of course.
2,000 odd people, even though I have a good open rate and engagement and all, but doesn't make sense from a...
I think open rate is pretty much standard what you have, but probably the number of subscribers is low, and probably the niche is not there yet. Right? It's a lot of people just following it for their own passion. Tell me something. What future plans? I mean, how do you plan to, bring it down to your niche? Are you planning on hiring some important people who come with this, with this kind of a background? What about growth? What is the future for either?
So that's the reason, one of the reasons I started the Local Brief newsletter, right?
Okay.
What I realized over the past year is people, we need to build a reading habit for people, right? And that can happen if you have like fun and interesting and short form content.
Okay.
Right, it's like reading newspapers. Imagine, we used to read newspapers. When I used to read newspapers when I was young. Now I don't subscribe to any newspaper, but I do, read online, right? So how do I make a habit out of it, right? How do I, every day you get the newspaper physically, it's right in front of you. You sit down and you read it. But nowadays people don't have the time to do that, and they're just
usually the consumption is happening over the phone.
So they're not really into physical news reading. So I wanted to build the same habit, the reading habit, to the current generation, right?
Okay.
And that can only happen if you start off with good, interesting, quirky, fun, what's happening around.
Okay, so this is something new that you're starting.
Yes,
it's called
the Local Brief.
Okay, has it started?
It has started. We've started, I think a couple of months back.
Okay.
We started the Bangalore edition.
And this is again online, or this
online? It's again a newsletter.
Okay.
So what we are doing is, it's more of a curation newsletter where we talk about 4 or 5 news items which have happened in your neighborhood.
Okay, so this is specifically
for your city, right?
Okay.
So we have a Bangalore edition. We only talk about Bangalore.
Okay.
Right. So whatever is happening, whether it's civic issues or sports or events or
awesome. And
food and drink.
This is again curation, or are you?
It is just curation where we curate. We look at the links, what's happened the previous day, and then we do a summary of.
So that short summary, and you provide links as well,
to,
right?
Yeah.
So it's snippets of 4 or 5 news within a particular
city,
and you're saying it's particularly quirky and so forth because
it's fun. It's slightly more. I'll tell you what. So we have within a couple of months we have over 500 subscribers already.
Okay.
For the Bangalore Brief, just the Bangalore.
And you've just started out in Bangalore right now.
Yes, and we are starting the Chennai edition over the next few days.
Okay, awesome.
So we are planning to scale that up.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, we are seeing again 30% open rates, but the engagements are high.
How do you see
we
that?
have for people who open the emails, we have a 15% engagement rate.
When you say who open the email, it's basically 15% is a CTR where they click on to other links.
Yeah. So and so again there we have polls, and we also have a question. We ask them generic questions, what did you do over the weekend, stuff like that.
And what is the TG that you're targeting out here?
This is people who want to understand, what's happening around the city. If you look at news, you read the news, you don't see what's happening in your locality, right? You read what's happening in Delhi, Bombay, all these major areas.
I'm very intrigued by this, because internationally, if you see Axios is recently a very good example. They came out with local newsletters, and they defined it by geography, and they've just recently sold out for 525 million, and I think the multiples were 10x or 15x of the revenue.
So I was, I would say, impressed by Axios, and that's sort of the way we write is also similar to how they write, right?
Okay.
Very, in bullet points and bold and all that.
So you're kind of taking inspiration from them.
Inspired from Axios, I would say. But, we cannot compare directly with the newsletters abroad, right?
Exactly.
You can't expect an Indian newsletter like Axios to gain that sort of firstly traction, and also to be sold off at that amount.
Of course, I'm not talking about those kind of numbers, but tell me something. You're saying that the audience is really reacting very positively to this, although despite the fact that the numbers are very small.
Yes.
How do you plan to scale this immediately?
Yes. So the first thing is to have multiple cities,
right,
and multiple city editions,
and you'll be hiring different people there for each city.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a curation based.
It's a curation based newsletter, and hopefully we'll reach out to, again, this model works with the influencer, Instagram influencer kind of model, where we can reach out to people who are talking about Bangalore, right? There's a lot of city-based influencers.
Exactly.
And that sort of works. I did an experiment with 1 or 2, and it sort of seemed to kick off from there.
And people are signing
People
up
are
and so
signing
forth.
up.
And I'm assuming that, this will... So CPMs are very low in India. Right. This is again going to work on mass, and that's the major difference between, I think, an American newsletter as compared to an Indian newsletter, right? So I'm assuming you're going to be looking at masses out there,
right?
But you're going to be advertising for the local business.
Yes. That's the idea, right? So, and I believe people are moving towards local advertising, more and more.
Okay.
Even Amazon has a separate, I think, started a separate division for local advertising or something like that. But yeah, that seems to be the future, right? So you have.
Do you plan to hire any person doing independent journalism within the
so right now, with the limited resources we have, it's going to be curation.
No.
Ultimately, we want to have like at least a couple of people in each city, like the exact same Axios model where we have a couple of people in each city. They source the news themselves.
Exactly.
They write it.
Exactly.
And they publish it, right?
Have you reached out to any VCs so far or any investors?
So I did talk to a few people.
Right. How's the response been?
Not very positive, I would say, in terms of whether VCs would invest, right?
Yeah, I feel it's not really a VC investable business, right?
Investable business. That's what I realized. But individuals are interested, right? So people who are interested in something like the local brief, they see the value in having a local newsletter which directly reaches out to, let's say, 10,000 people in Bangalore, right?
Right.
If that is the sort of, that's the aim that we have for the next.
So I think if you really crack the content with the users, I think advertisers would be
flocking. Yeah.
They'll be flocking to kind of come in.
And we'll have very targeted, city-based,
Exactly. I think I can, I would love to know more about this later on. Probably I can keep on connecting with you because this is very exciting. Although I'll tell you what, if you go down, so in Delhi and in the northern parts of the country, you do have even sector-wise newspapers, right? And usually it's the same company who's doing it. And what I've seen is that they do have, and it's not online. They give out those physical papers. Each sector will have it, and they usually, the RWA kind of comes and makes sure that you get it and everything like that. And people do read it. They somehow, they'll not probably read the main newspaper, but they'll
read the supplements.
It's very difficult to explain this, but I've kind of seen this happening. I don't know the reason behind why this is happening. So I'm assuming that this is your next big bet right now.
Yeah. So what I've realized is, depending on one newsletter for a business, is probably not the way to go, right? So if you look at people like the Ken, they don't have a single newsletter. They have like multiple newsletters talking about different things, right? So, and I intend to build brands which target different niche, right? And the local niche is something that I started now. First, focus on scaling that up. Either view, I'll try to bring a B2B aspect to it and see how that works. Eventually, either view will be a paid newsletter. Right. So that's always been the plan. But whether it should be a B2C or a B2B is something that we are.
You're going to be figuring that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Great, Vignesh. I think this has been a very interesting conversation, because in a way you've just started out. It's just been a year, and you're not just fighting against a local creator, you're actually fighting against the bigger brands as well when it comes down to either view. And I'm really excited about your local brief because I really think that people are more engaged. Of course, there is that idea about international news, what's happening globally or what's happening across the country. Somehow people have started to feel that they want to connect locally as well within their community, right? So I'm going to wish you all the luck for that, and definitely I would love to have you back, sometime later to discuss much bigger numbers around both these properties that you've built up. So thanks once again, and hoping to see you soon again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on this show. I'm not sure what value you found from this episode, but
it's
been fun interacting with you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Vignesh.